Thank you so much everyone for joining me tonight. Very appreciated. So, let's get started. I need to start and say I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a Rebetzin, I shouldn't be discussing this. There is plenty of more people who are way more qualified and way more educated who should be giving this talk, and yet I have presented this information to so many charities and so many organizations and so many Instagram profiles, and no one wants to talk about it. All sorts of reasons. And so came to the end of 2020, which is now, and I said, no one else is going to talk about it, then I guess I have to talk about it. So here I am. I have to say my only experience and the only reason I can be talking about it is I've had a stillbirth, I've had miscarriages, so I know the experience, but that is my only credentials. I also need to emphasize that everything I'm going to be talking about are not my own thoughts, they're not my own concepts, they are ideas that have been presented to me by incredible, spiritually amazing people, and I am just relaying that information in a more accessible format so that what happened to me and what happened to my husband doesn't need to happen to other people. We were very badly informed at the time, 5 years ago in 2015. No one really knew what to do, what to say, what the customs were, what the traditions were, what the Halochos were. No one knew. It wasn't like a guidebook. It's not like, for us, like I was there 7 weeks and I found out that, my baby had died inside of me. It's not like someone was like, okay, so now what we're going to do is da 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 da. Like, it didn't work like that. It was crazy, it was manic, it was hell. It was awful, and along the way there were so many things that happened that should not have happened, and if someone would have just told me at the time and guided me and explained to me what I am going to explain to you tonight, life would have just been so much more, it would just have been different. And I had this is now to 2020, and she died in 2015. It's been 5 years of learning and trying to speak to all sorts of people across the world, Gedolei Israel, and really important Jewish leaders, and just all sorts of people to try and understand and comprehend from a Jewish standpoint. And why do I say Jewish standpoint? I'm a very spiritual person and I'm a religious person, so everything that I do and everything that I experience is going to be within the viewpoint of my religion, of my my viewpoint that everything has a reason and everything has a spiritual consequence, and there is just beauty to everything, and that there is a God orchestrating the world. And my eldest daughter did not just die because she just died for the sake of it, and everyone who told me at the time it was time to move on and just forget about it and just quickly go and have another child, like, that is wrong. That is wrong. It's so important actually to understand what a miscarriage is, what a stillbirth is, to then be able to take that into our lives, really internalize the message, our mission as part of this baby's life, and then take it with us. You're going to have the grief, it's going to be a horrible situation, it's going to be tragic, and in our case, we had baby stuff that, it was 37 weeks, so like we had baby stuff that we were just like, get rid of it now. We then spent many years until we were blessed with children, live children, and so the whole process was, tragic and awful. But these concepts that I'm going to run through with you now really have helped me and have really given me such peace, and I'm sharing them with you. So I wanted to just give a shout out to the main people who put me together. So this was Rabbi Tatz. He actually spoke in 2017, 18. I'm going to show you if this lets me. Yeah. He spoke at the Jali on this topic. His daughter, Rebetzin, Ruthie Halberstadt, who's the Rebetzin of Tatz, who is just the reason I am smiling today. She has just got me through really just everything. She's a incredibly spiritually in tune, phenomenal person. Rabbi Tatz put me in touch with Rabbi Zimmerman, who was at the time the head of the Gateshead community, is now actually head of the federation based in. There's Rabbi Smith, who is from Talston, who is the Rav in Neve, and he was my Rav in Mechlala. There's Dayan, who is one of the main Rabbonim in the UAHC, which is Kadassia, which is Adas and Stamford Hill. Rebetzin Rikki, who was just a angel. If anyone who knows her, she's like the most amazing, wonderful woman ever to walk this planet. Then 2 articles really helped me, and the first was Rabbi Weiner, and his article I actually found only in 2020. And part of the reason why I was comfortable to actually give this presentation is because he has written a lot of what I'm going to be talking tonight in such a beautiful way, and I've asked him, and he's given me permission to share his article. It's just a phenomenal and incredible, and it's such a resource to the Jewish community, because we didn't have anything of the sort like that until I found it. And he has put this together as part of his larger book called The Jewish Guide to Practical Medical Decision Making, published by Urim. And the last Rav that really impacted was a Rav called Rabbi Moshe Wolfson, and he wrote for the Jewish Observer in 1995 a really powerful article, which again is all part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I want to specify there's going to be a distinction between a child that is born and lives for 30 days and any child prior to that who doesn't live for over 30 days. So that's the children who are born and then die after 1 or 2 days after their parents give birth to them. The stillborn children, which is kind of after like 25 weeks pregnancy, and then the miscarriages. Any child who is born prior to those 30 days, such a grey area in halacha. And the reason is, in Jewish law, Halochos Jewish law, and the reason is that in the olden days, children died all the time. Pregnancy was dangerous, childbirth was dangerous, even the children, like keeping them alive and well was dangerous. So there was really a distinction between, like, you couldn't have shiva all the time, you couldn't have halachas of all these deaths all the whole time, because it happened the whole time. And so there was that distinction made between the children prior to those 30 days and the children post. And this is the first thing that I want to share with you. I'm going to read word for word from Rabbi Weiner's book. Like, listen. The pure soul of the fetus or newborn never completely entered the human realm, and thus never severed its total attachment to Hashem. The soul thus remains pure and holy. It goes straight back to heaven, and at the end of the world, it will return in the resurrection of the dead. Like, hello. And then I'm going to read to you. This is the same concept, and I've left it intentionally on the screen, what Rabbi Moshe Wolfson has written. Some neshamas belong to a very exalted class. They are of such sublime nature, so holy, sparkling, and brilliant, they simply cannot bear to exist in the world even for a short time. Guys, why weren't we told this earlier? For all of you who had a miscarriage, for all of you who had a stillbirth, you are an exalted class. You have had the privilege of carrying a child that was too pure and too holy for this world. And not even too pure and holy. They didn't need to be on this earth. They had a mission to accomplish. They required them to be 5 weeks, 3 months, 9 months on this earth. And at the end of that, they are going straight back to heaven. Hello? Do you know what a privilege that is? What a big of a deal that is. So in my case, yes, I would have loved to have brought my child up, my daughter, my eldest daughter. I would have loved to have got to know her. But my role as her mother, and it's really, really important to remember that I am still her mother, and at 120, when I go up, she will come and greet me as my daughter because I am her mother. My role as her mother was simply to look after her for 9 months. And in my case, I had hyperemesis gravidarum, and it was a horrible pregnancy, so I really committed 9 months of my life to her, and my husband did too. So as parents, we have done what God has wanted from us, and we have done what we needed to do for our daughter, for our eldest, which is to just look after her for those 37 weeks, and that was that. And once you start to put your horrible, rubbish miscarriage and stillbirth into perspective and realize that they are pure souls that we've had the privilege of just looking after for a short while, then actually it's a wonderful experience. As in, obviously, the outside of this spiritual side, it's horrible and it's dreadful and it's hell and it's the grief and it's loss and it's death and it's a corpse and it's just terrible. But the privilege of it is incredible and amazing. And that's why I think it's so important to really frame this whole topic with that brush, because then all the halachic questions and all the concepts and all the problems that come from it are just so much easier to answer. I get so angry when people are like, no, we're not going to talk about it because if God forbid it happens to someone, they'll ask their rabbi and they'll find out what's allowed, what's not. Guys, there is most things, it's not even about being allowed. It's once you appreciate that they are a pure soul, the stuff that you want to do is not relevant anymore. Or if it's relevant, you're doing it for you and you're not doing it for the baby. You're not doing it for the baby soul because the baby soul does not need it. And this is where we come on to the second point, and then we're going to run through kind of halachos and not halachos, and you're going to see most of it's Kabbalistic, most of it's custom. The soul is perfect. This is point number 2. The soul is perfect and therefore does not need so many rituals. When someone dies, we have a whole process for them. We have levaya for them, elevating their soul. We have speeches for them, elevating their soul. We have shiva. We sit down and mourn. We tear our clothes. We say a kaddish for them, elevating their soul because they need a whole boost to be able to get up to heaven and have a great life up there and really finish off their life. But our babies that we've miscarried and they don't need that because they're perfect and they're pure, so they're just going to go straight up to heaven. They don't need our stuff. If we want to do it, great, go for it. If that, if me sitting shiva, if that's what's going to help me with my mourning, great, go for it. So for example, there's we were told terribly, we were so misguided at the time. But when, let's say, with her birth and when she was born, we had the most amazing doula, Simcha Colthof, and she works in Israel, and she was incredible and amazing, and she forced us to do these things. We were like, oh my gosh, we're doing an Avera, we're doing such terrible things. We're like, no, hugging your baby, kissing your baby, bathing your baby. If there's a cuddle cot which keeps the baby's body warmer for longer, taking photos with them, cutting their hair, putting hand and foot stamps, all those things, go for it. There's a Kabbalistic concept of, not taking photos of dead, and if it's a dead corpse, but there's so much more that you need to take into account. There is medical research that says that sitting with one's baby who has died and just saying goodbye to them is going to have massive benefits in the long term, and therefore most Rabbanim, however wide the spectrum, most Rabbanim will say that go if that's what will bring you menachas nefesh, if that's what will give you calm and comfort, go for it. The only 2 things that I have thought about, and when I've been discussing it, obviously, because was nida and autopsy of the baby. Those are the 2 things that I'm that needs a rabbi's opinion, but otherwise the rest of it is just, it's all spiritual, it's all mystical stuff, and you just, once you have the concept in your mind of the baby's pure and the baby, if you need to, because you're human, if you need to say goodbye to the baby and really mourn for the baby and give the child a name, go for it. That's going to give you comfort and going to help you grieve. There's really, really, and I'm going to share the article by Rabbi Weiner, it goes through all the Rabbanim, saying yes, no, like there's so much to be said on it, but actually when it comes down to it, it's so much more simple than you would think. It's really what the parents need at that point in time. I get asked all day long about the burial, about that whole process, and I'll just give a quick run through. For London, we had options. We didn't at the time, but I'm telling you now, you have options. There's the Adas, there's the Federation, there's the Based In, depending on, there's Masorti, there's Conservative, there's Reform. I looked into all of them. So the Adas, who we went with, don't tell you where the baby's buried, they don't tell you the name that they give the baby, and they don't tell you when they're going to bury the baby. The reason for that is this third concept that we're going to talk about. And this third concept is, we try not to tether the baby's soul to this earth. And what does that mean? Because the baby's pure, because we want the baby to go straight back up to heaven, we try not to pull it back down to earth and give it too much attachment to earth. So the Adas believes, and this is not halacha, this is custom, that if we know that where the baby is buried, then we are tethering the baby to the earth. The baby's soul, we're tethering it to its body too much, and it's going to, keep the baby down on this earth too much. This is all spiritual stuff, so if that resonates with you, then great, go for it. But if it doesn't, then you need to know that, then let's say that Adas is not the right burial society for you, and you can go with the Federation. Let's say the Federation, they allow you to have someone, they don't allow the parents to have the burial, they allow this is not halacha, this is custom. They allow you to have someone with you, they allow you to send someone to have the burial, they allow you to know where the baby's buried, and they allow you to, I think, know the name, or to name the child yourself. But in general, the Chaver Kadisha will name the child like a name that's like not so common, just to give it kind of that distinction between, a child that's on this earth and a child that goes straight to heaven. And the Based In allows you to actually be at the burial yourself, and to have a whole levaya, and to speak, and to put up a plaque. And Reform, Conservative, Masorti, exactly the same. You're allowed to have a plaque, you're allowed to speak and eulogize, or whatever. You can do all these things. The baby doesn't need it, but you can do all these things. And that really then gets me to my fourth point, which is certain neshamas are born, and this is straight from Rabbi Zimmerman himself. Certain neshamas are born to go straight to Olam Haba, to go straight to heaven, as opposed to most of us that have to struggle through Olam Hazeh, this world. And I will end off now with tons of questions that I get asked, but with this concept in mind. So first of all, do you light a candle on Shabbos? Yes, I light a candle on Shabbos. Not customary, but mutter, I was told. I felt really guilty at the time, because I was like, once she died, I was like, well, I'm lighting candles every Friday night. So I was like, me, my husband, and for her. And then as the years went by, then I found out, oh no, not customary, but mutter. Great. Like, the baby doesn't need, and like, this is so important. Like, when you're lighting your candles for your children, like, you are bringing light and sparking their soul. But my eldest daughter doesn't need me to spark her soul, because she is pure and holy, so she doesn't need my Friday night candle. But I want to light Friday night candle. And I've spoken to so many people, and like one particular person I remember saying she lit the candle, and then like the wind blew and it burnt out, and so she never lit a candle for her child, and she's okay with that. This is all what resonates with you. Did we name her? No, we didn't. Should we have named her? Again, like, we don't need to have named her. I think we would have liked to if we would have known it was allowed. Yahrzeit. Do we have a Yahrzeit? Yes, we have a Yahrzeit. But again, Yahrzeit, no Yahrzeit observance is needed, because there's no change in the status of the soul, and it helps the soul in the yearly stages of elevation. But if you want to, and that was again Rabbi Zimmerman, but great, if you want to, go for it. That's just so it's so, I don't know why people make a big deal of this, because it's really just so much more straightforward than it should be, unless I'm totally missing something, and someone can comment or message me afterwards. I think that's really what I wanted to say. I'm just looking through everything. That's really what I wanted to say, those 4 main points, which are so important and so practical. The first was the pure soul of the fetus, the newborn, never completely entered the human realm, and it's never severed its connection with Hashem, with God, and therefore it's going to go straight back up to heaven. The second point, that the soul is perfect, and therefore we don't need so many rituals. The third point, which is we try not to tether the soul of the baby back to earth. And then the fourth point, which is that some souls are born to go straight to Olam Haba, and opposed to most of us that have to struggle in Olam Hazeh. And I will end off with a sefer that helped me tremendously, which was Shar HaGilgolim by the Arizal. It's all about the reincarnation of souls again and again and again, and that will really give you a flavour of understanding that your child, your baby, is just the death of that child is just a part of a much larger picture. Like it's just so much bigger than how we talk about it right now. And there's also something that I will quickly mention that Rabbi Wolfson talks about, which is that there's also a concept that there needs to be a certain amount of souls that come into this world before the Messiah. And your baby then also just may be one of those souls that just needs a tiny bit of a rectification in this world. You know, is here for 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 weeks and then goes straight back up to heaven. So I really hope that this has been helpful. I would really implore you, share this and give this to people who need it, probably a year after they have suffered a loss, because prior to that they need to mourn, they need to grieve, they need to really process the emotion, because positivity and happiness and like, oh my gosh, it was meant to be, don't worry, it was meant to be, is real privilege. Like, yes, it's a privilege. I didn't want this privilege. I got this privilege, and so now I've had to look into it and understand it, but it wasn't something that I wanted. And if someone would have given this to me, truth is, if someone would have presented this to me right at the beginning, I probably would have been okay with it, but that's just me. So be on the safe side. Please share this. Please share this around, but do it thoughtfully. And there was just tons of other questions about how can you help your friends and rainbow babies, and we're going to talk about that another time because it's a separate conversation. But I really thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you, and comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a good night.